Let's unpack this. Imagine a country, right, that's just exploding digitally. Innovation, connectivity, tons of data. But the laws, the rules, they're kind of scrambling to keep up. That's Mexico right now. And what's happening there. It gives us some, well, really fascinating insights for all of us, trying to figure out our own digital lives. So today we're doing a deep dive. We've got a stack of recent sources covering Mexico's brand new data protection laws, a really ambitious plan for national cybersecurity, a booming tech job market, and even a, let's say, controversial new biometric ID system. Our mission: to pull out the key bits of info. How's Mexico trying to balance innovation, security, and human rights in this digital age? And really importantly, what does it all mean for you? Just before we jump in, a quick word. Protecting your digital stuff, your assets, it's absolutely crucial these days. That's where our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com, comes in. They really help organizations navigate the complex world of cybersecurity with solutions tailored to them. More on that later. Right then, first up, the big legal changes. Mexico has fundamentally shaken up its data privacy rules this year. We're talking about a brand new federal law on the protection of personal data held by private parties, the LFPDPPP. It kicked in March 21, 2025. And this isn't just like a minor update. It comes with a huge structural shift, getting rid of INAI.
Yes, the National Institute of Transparency, Access to Information, and Protection of Personal Data. It was dissolved back on December 20, 2024. And what's really interesting here, beyond just the new law, is that institutional shift you mentioned. INAI was, autonomous, an independent regulator for data privacy, kind of the referee.
Okay, an independent referee. So who has the whistle now?
Well, that's the key change. Its powers, its responsibilities, they've been transferred to the Ministry of Anti-Corruption and Good Governance, or SABG. This is a government body. It reports directly to the executive branch. So our sources point out this isn't just moving boxes around. It changes the whole dynamic. Oversight moves from independent to political.
Right. So instead of an independent body, it's now part of the government itself calling the shots.
Yeah.
That could mean potentially more political influence on enforcement.
Exactly. That's the concern highlighted. It could introduce more political discretion. Now, it's important to stress the actual rules, the legal framework for protecting personal data, that stays, but who enforces it and maybe how they enforce it, that's changed profoundly. For businesses in Mexico, it means they need to act. Review privacy notices, update them, replace mentions of INAI with the new ministry.
Makes sense.
And they really need to keep an eye out for new regulations. Those are expected from the executive branch within about 90 days of the new law taking effect. That should give more clarity. But yeah, it adds a layer of, let's say, unpredictability.
Okay, so new privacy rules on one hand, but with this big question mark over enforcement. And on the other hand, a cybersecurity threat that's just skyrocketing. This is where it gets really kind of alarming, actually. Mexico has become a massive target. In 2024 alone, sources report a 78% jump in cyber attack attempts. 78%.
Wow.
Reaching 31 million attempts. That's like 55% of all attacks in Latin America happening in Mexico.
55%, that's staggering.
It is. And they're hitting critical places. Government took the biggest hit, 31%. Then manufacturing and trade, healthcare, finance, transport.
So the essential services people rely on.
Exactly. So how on earth is Mexico responding to that kind of onslaught?
Well, that's the critical question, isn't it? This intense pressure has led to a pretty significant proposed law. Senator Luis Donaldo Colosio R. has put forward a cybersecurity law. And what makes it really stand out is its foundation. It frames cybersecurity as a human right.
A human right. That's a strong statement.
It is. The aim is to protect citizens' digital freedoms alongside the critical infrastructure. Moving away from the current sort of patchwork of regulations they have, it's about securing the systems, yes, but also explicitly protecting individual rights online.
Okay, so how would that work? What's the structure?
It proposes a couple of key bodies. First, a national cybersecurity agency. This would be a decentralized public body. Its job: coordinate policy, handle incidents, promote a cybersecurity culture across the country, get everyone aware. Second, a national cybersecurity system. Think of this as a big coordination hub.
Bringing everyone together.
Exactly. Government, private companies, academics, civil society groups, the CERTs, the computer emergency response teams, a real multi-sector effort. The law also sets up a risk-based system for operators. Classifies them, essential services, critical infrastructure, digital service providers, government agencies, places handling high-risk data.
Right. Different levels of importance, different rules.
Precisely. Graduated obligations. High-risk operators, they'd face tougher rules, ongoing risk assessments, annual audits. Lower-risk ones, more basic security hygiene. And, importantly, it aims to update the federal penal code to tackle newer threats like cyberbullying, critical infrastructure attacks, biometric ID theft, unauthorized crypto mining, ransomware.
So bringing the criminal law up to speed, too.
Yes. And for organizations, facing these kinds of threats everywhere, not just in Mexico, having robust security is just non-negotiable. That's why resources and connections from places like www.cisomarketplace.com are becoming so vital. They help businesses find the right tools and expertise to stay ahead.
Okay, so with attacks increasing and this push for cybersecurity as a human right, what exactly is the data they're trying to protect?
Yeah.
Let's dig into how Mexico's actually redefining personal data.
Yeah.
Because the new law, the FLPPDPPP, it expands this definition quite a bit. It used to be limited to natural persons, like individuals. That limit's gone.
Right. Now it covers any identifiable individual, directly or indirectly, and some sources are suggesting this might even stretch to include things like corporate identifiers, tax IDs for businesses, for example.
Whoa, okay, that could be huge for B2B companies.
It definitely could. It changes how they might need to handle data they previously thought wasn't personal. The law also gets stricter on consent. Consent now has to be free, specific, and informed. Tacit consent, where you don't object, so it's assumed you agree, that's generally okay for general personal data. But for sensitive data, for international transfers, for marketing, you need express consent.
Meaning you have to actively say yes, probably in writing.
Often, yes. A clear affirmative action, no ambiguity. It puts more responsibility on the organization to get that clear yes. The law also beefs up ARCO rights. That's access, rectification, cancellation, opposition. Gives people more control.
Easier ways to see their data, fix it, delete it, or object to its use.
Exactly. And the privacy notices the aviso de privacidad. They need to be clearer now. Simple language, comprehensive info, easy ways to exercise those ARCO rights, and one really forward-looking bit. It formally recognizes digital rights.
Like what?
Things like the right to a free and open internet, protections for kids online, the right to use secure devices. And crucially, it brings in the right to object to decisions made by AI or automated systems if they have negative legal effects or harm your interests.
So starting to grapple with AI governance, too. That's pretty progressive.
It is. It shows they're thinking about the impact of algorithms on people's lives.
Okay, so data's definition is wider, consent is tighter, there are rights around AI, but data flows globally, right? How does this fit with international rules like Europe's GDPR? You mentioned international transfers need express consent.
Yeah, and that's a key difference and a potential hurdle. Mexico's framework relies very heavily on consent for sending data abroad. GDPR in Europe has other options, other legal bases, like legitimate business interests, or if the transfer is needed for a contract, makes things a bit more flexible sometimes. This heavy reliance on consent in Mexico can be a challenge for multinational companies, especially since the EU hasn't given Mexico an adequacy decision.
Meaning, the EU doesn't automatically consider Mexico's data protection up to par for seamless transfers.
Correct. So, transfers from the EU to Mexico need extra safeguards. Then you add the USMCA, the US-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement. It generally prohibits forcing companies to keep data only within Mexico, but it has an exception for legitimate public policy objectives.
The classic loophole.
Kind of. It creates what some call a compliance paradox. High standards required inside Mexico by the new law, but trade pressures and political factors pushing for easier data flow out. Businesses are caught in the middle.
Tricky balancing act.
Oh.
And the AI governance part. How does that work in practice?
Well, the law says organizations using automated decision-making have to be transparent. They need to tell people clearly about the logic the algorithm uses, why it's significant, what the potential consequences are, and individuals get the right to have a human review the decision, get an explanation, and object if it significantly affects them.
Okay, human oversight, transparency, important safeguards. Now, let's shift to something that stirred up a lot of debate in Mexico, this mandatory biometric digital ID system, the Cédula Única de Identidad Digital, or CUID, set to launch July 18th, 2025. And just to be clear, we're relaying what our sources report here, presenting the different facets of this discussion.
Yes, it's definitely a complex and sensitive topic. This system requires every Mexican citizen to submit quite extensive biometric data. We're talking fingerprints, iris scans, photos, and apparently there are plans for voice prints and maybe even DNA samples down the line.
Wow, DNA. Where does all this data go?
It goes into a single, centralized government database,
Yeah.
controlled by RENAPO, the National Population Registry. And this is where the major concerns highlighted by our sources come in. A centralized database like that, it's a massive target. A single point of failure. If that gets breached, well, unlike a password, you can't change your fingerprint or your iris scan.
Right. Once it's out
Yeah.
permanently. That's a scary thought.
It is. Critics point to that as a fundamental risk. Your unique biological identifiers potentially compromised forever, and the system itself. It's designed to be incredibly comprehensive. The ID, the CUID, is linked to a QR code, and that code apparently links to a huge amount of personal info: name, addresses, current and past, job history, education, tax ID, voter info, health insurance, even criminal records.
So basically, your entire life history linked to your biometrics in one database.
Pretty much. And reports mention concerns about real-time tracking capabilities, the potential for authorities to monitor movements, flag activities deemed suspicious. Perhaps most concerning for critics is the mandate for private businesses to integrate with the system.
Which businesses?
Banks, mobile phone companies, hotels, transport, healthcare providers. This goes on. Critics describe this as creating a corporate government surveillance fusion. Every transaction, every interaction potentially logged and linked back to this central ID.
Blurring the lines between private life and state monitoring significantly.
That's the argument, yes. Critics assert that while authorities justify it as a tool to fight crime and make services efficient, it carries really significant human rights implications. They argue it could undermine the presumption of innocence. Everyone's biometrics are on file just in case, and potentially restrict freedom of movement if biometric checks become routine for basic services. Imagine needing an iris scan to buy groceries or board a bus. It's really vital for you, the listener, to grasp these different viewpoints, the stated goals versus the potential impacts on privacy and freedom that critics are raising.
Absolutely. Those are profound concerns to weigh against the potential benefits. Okay, so we have these huge legal shifts, cybersecurity challenges, this massive biometric ID project. But amidst all this complexity, Mexico's digital economy is actually, well, it's booming, right?
Oh, absolutely. Despite the governance challenges, the tech sector is incredibly vibrant. It's creating significant opportunities, especially in cybersecurity. The scene there is really taking off.
Got any numbers on that?
Yeah, the cybersecurity market alone is projected to hit nearly $3.2 billion by 2028. That's growing about 8% a year. And Mexico City. It's now the biggest tech hub in Latin America, over 300,000 tech specialists there.
300,000. That's huge. Is the government supporting this growth?
They are. Reports mention planned investment of about $1.2 billion just for cybersecurity by 2024, and the demand for experts. It's through the roof. Cloud security, incident response, protecting the Internet of Things. Companies need people now. We're seeing job growth spiking 18% in banking cybersecurity roles, 14% in healthcare.
18%.
Yeah, and the overall cybersecurity workforce is expected to grow another 15% in 2025. It's rapid expansion.
But that kind of growth must bring challenges, too, like finding enough skilled people. You mentioned legislative uncertainty earlier as well.
Definitely. Those are the two big ones. The shifting legal landscape we discussed creates some hesitation for investment, maybe. And yes, the skills gap is real. There just aren't enough trained professionals to meet this massive demand. Plus, there's the ongoing issue of diversity globally. Women only make up about 25% of the cybersecurity workforce, and Mexico reflects that challenge too.
So how are they tackling that skills gap? Are they training people fast enough?
There are efforts underway. Big tech companies like Microsoft are reportedly investing in training programs. There's also a big push for partnerships between industry and universities, creating training centers focused on practical, hands-on skills, not just theory. Events like the Mexico Cybersecurity Summit are also key, bringing pros together for workshops, networking, career development. It's a multi-pronged approach to try and build that talent pipeline.
Makes sense. You need the people to match the growth.
Exactly. And, that reminds me again for professionals looking to upskill or businesses needing to find that talent or bolster their teams. Resources like our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com, can be really valuable. They offer practical solutions and connect businesses with the expert services they need in this tight market.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big picture here? Mexico seems to be truly at a digital crossroads. We've seen this incredibly fast evolution in data privacy law, a really bold, maybe unique move to frame cybersecurity as a human right, and this super dynamic job market making it a Latin American tech powerhouse.
Right. Huge progress, huge potential.
Alongside that, we've also unpacked some really critical concerns. The shift in privacy enforcement, moving it under direct government control. Yeah, it raises questions. And then there's the COID, the biometric ID system. Highly debated, with sources framing it as potentially a profound challenge to individual privacy and freedom. That whole corporate government surveillance fusion idea is, well, it's a stark warning from critics.
It really is. And this whole deep dive into Mexico, I think, it just perfectly illustrates a global trend, that line between national security, convenience, and individual privacy. It's getting blurrier everywhere. Mexico is just a very clear, very accelerated example of this tension. So the final thought, maybe the question for you, the listener, is this. As governments all over the world look at similar digital ID systems, as they gather more data, as they try to secure our increasingly digital societies, how do we make sure we strike the right balance? How do we, as citizens, as a global community, ensure that the very real needs for security and convenience don't completely overshadow fundamental human rights and our individual autonomy? That's the challenge we're all going to be facing, I think, for years to come.
A really crucial question to ponder. A huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Mexico's really complex and fast-moving digital landscape. We hope this gave you a useful shortcut to understanding what's going on there. And remember, staying informed, staying secure in this digital age, it's vital. For top-tier cybersecurity solutions, expert connections, do check out our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.com. They're a great resource for navigating these issues. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.